Welcome to Graybeard Radio, where wisdom meets impact and income, and fakery is reviled. I'm your host, Matt Hempel, bringing you conversations for men 50 plus who prioritize health, relevance, and connection, all while leveraging the best in tools and technology. Ladies, welcome. No beard required. I'm launching my first full episode very soon, and I want you to enjoy it before anyone else. So be sure to subscribe to this podcast right now. That way you'll get every new episode delivered to your device automatically, and it'll always be ready for you when you want to listen. And you'll want to tune in every week because this podcast isn't about me, it's about you. My goal is to help us both stay healthy, discover the real value in our decades of wisdom and experience, and turn that into meaningful impact and income, whether in your current career or business, a completely new direction, or retirement. Here's the thing. If you're stuck, overwhelmed, burned out, disillusioned, or just uncertain about what your next step should be, you don't have to get out of the game entirely. Maybe it's just a slightly different game, your rules, on your terms. With the right tools and technology and strategy, you can stay connected to the people and things that matter most and thrive in this next chapter. And here's the best part. There has never been a better time in history to make this shift. For the first time ever, we can combine our decades of hard-won wisdom with cutting-edge tools and technology that amplify everything we do. The opportunities available to us right now are unprecedented. Plus, if you know anyone else who would benefit from the life-changing information I've got coming your way, please feel free to share it with them as well. And ladies, if you really want to know what your spouse, your significant other, or any of the men in your life are actually thinking, you need to listen to this podcast. Don't worry, it'll be our secret. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast right now and be on the lookout for my premiere episode, which is coming very, very soon. So I'd like to welcome today Luke Thomas, and we've been through the bio at this point, and what I'd like to do, Luke, and it's great to have you on board, and when we had our initial conversation, it was really inspiring, kind of the path that you've taken and the things that you've done and the people's lives that you've affected through the years of your mission and your calling and so forth. And I'd really like to get into that. But first, maybe you could go back and just kind of start at the beginning, where you came from, where you grew up, what your household was like growing up. And, our objective and our goal here is to really provide some food for thought for men in their 50s and 60s as they're going through potentially a transition in late career, early retirement, thinking about what they might want to do next. Maybe they are burnt out, maybe they're overwhelmed, and they're just looking to kind of chart a new path forward and are really looking for some of the tools and inspiration to do that. So with all of that said, maybe you just take us back to the very beginning.
Yeah, I'll take you back to the parts that anyone would be interested in. But I grew up in West Texas. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned a bunch of restaurants. And always had a very high entrepreneurial IQ. So I kind of, before I even knew what the word meant, was able to see it in action and grew from it quite a bit. Carried it through school. I was a high overachiever all the way through school, high school, college, whether it was grades or extracurricular, just looking to be first chair, first team, first in the class is just the way I've been wound. When I got into college, it was for medicine. It wasn't to be a pastor by any means. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and that was the bullseye all the way through undergraduate school. I became a Christian as a senior in college, and knew that I was called to be in the full-time ministry. So I backed out of medical school, started raising financial support to start campus ministries. Which was probably my first entrance into entrepreneurial work myself. And then that just graduated over time into church planting, which is a very difficult endeavor to do. It's got a high failure rate to it because of some of the demands that are on it. But I'll tell you, it's perfect for an overachiever, and
Yeah.
someone that's wound that way. So we planted Legacy Church, which is my third church plant. I was a part of two others, one in West Texas and one in Florida, as as an executive pastor. So being on a launch team with other entrepreneurial minds. But this here in Knoxville is my very first one to be the lead pastor, and we started from scratch. We had no people, we had no money, and we moved to a city that we had no history in. So
Oh,
moved to yeah, moved to a town that no one was asking us to move to start something no one was asking for us to start. It's a
yeah. No,
very, very difficult.
it's interesting. And just as an aside, and we won't get too far off on this tangent, but my wife and I attend a church now that was planted like at the height of COVID. I might
Uh,
have been summer of 2020, maybe early 2021,
yeah, yeah.
um, and an older pastor. I say older. He's a little older than I am. Um, so he's not a spring chicken, but he felt called, and there were a number of circumstances that aligned for him, and we're getting to experience a little bit of this entrepreneurial bent that it takes in order to undertake an endeavor like this.
Oh yeah.
And it's not easy, but I'm learning a lot as we kind of walk alongside the rest of the congregation and the leadership team and kind of get this thing up and going. And of course, it's not a brand new plant, but it's
Hmm.
we're still early stages. And so let me ask you a question again about the planting the church, because our little church happens to be part of a bigger um, church organization. It's actually an Anglican Anglican Church of America. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is, but um, are you doing this as sort of an independent streak or an independent effort, or is it part of a larger organization?
Yeah, we were assessed through and planted with Acts 29, which is a global church planting network, and it's quite large. It's one of the largest and one of the faster growing ones, but it's a single issue network, so it's not like a denomination. It is focused on church planting and doing so
Ah,
with healthy plants, healthy pastors. So the assessment protocol is really thick. It's not easy to get into the network, um,
okay.
but our success rate is very high because of how thick the assessment is. And some of the things that we do to nurture our younger church planters and our pastors. So it's yeah that, and I don't know that
Yeah.
we would have made it without that.
Yeah. Interesting. It's very interesting angle. Of course, we have the support of the hierarchy that it's a little bit of a different model, but I get what you're saying,
Mhm.
and the focus on that is really helpful from what I'm hearing you talk about. So um, maybe you could go back a little bit and more and talk about some of the inflection points, some of the crossroads, some of the things that happened to you personally
Mhm.
that really, you mentioned uh, becoming a Christian as a senior in college.
Mhm.
What other things happened along the way that really got you either pointed in the right direction or pointed in a different direction from what you thought maybe you were supposed to be doing? Or what were some of the circumstances or events that happened to you along the way that kind of shaped how it turned out so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, my salvation was probably the biggest one, because I had a path and I had a route I wanted to run, and the Lord kind of ruined me of everything else. And as I stepped into the ministry, that was a big pivot for me. It
So
changed
what do you
everything.
mean? What do you mean by that? You wanted to run, but
Hmm.
all the other options were kind of
Ruined.
taken out of your.
Yep. Hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
mean by that?
I just didn't see myself being a surgeon and being happy anymore. I could have been I could have gone into medical school, whether I'd have been a surgeon or not. It's probably neither here nor there, but I could have gone to medical school. I think I probably would have been a good doctor, but I knew that I was called to do something very different. And so that was a hard thing to navigate as a 21-year-old, um, where you'd only wanted to do one thing since middle school, and then right when it's within reach, you step out, and that was a painful, hard 6 months. I had a lot of people helping me navigate that decision matrix, but that was probably the first big signpost for me, I suppose. I realized after the second campus ministry and the second church plant how much I enjoyed starting things,
Yeah.
and the muscle set it takes to start
Yeah.
something rather than to manage it over time. And like I said, my dad was
Yeah.
one that kind of ran before me and showed me what that looked like. And so I fit that mold well enough to plant this church. So that
Yeah.
was probably another one, a realization that I could probably be happy on staff with another larger church. I think I could be, just
Sure.
doing something that was needed and valuable. But I felt like I would really be happiest and most used the way I was built to just start something from scratch.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, that's a really interesting observation because I've noticed the same thing, and I've learned some of the same things over the years in business, in organizations, in individuals, and skill sets. There are some people, it just seems they're built to invent things, start things, create things, and once it sort of gets up and going on, once it gets up and going, everything can really fall apart unless they layer in the right kind of people into the situation, and that's really not what they're built to do. It's for best for other people to take those on.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did you? So you ran into some health issues at
Yes.
some point. I think it was 2011 from our conversation
Right.
before.
Hmm.
Um, let's talk about that turning point
Yeah.
and kind of what happened to you. Let's talk about maybe what led up to that, to the extent that you're comfortable
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah. Totally comfortable. Yeah.
It's not is not meant to be a be all, a tell all of
Hmm.
any sort. But what we're really looking to do is kind of draw out some of the things that you went through,
Hmm.
some of the decisions you made, and some of the things you experienced, and then kind of how you came through
Yeah,
the other
certainly.
side of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, 2011, we'd been on the ground here in Knoxville for a year, and had already launched in the house with just me and my best friend, on a couch. That's how we started. And it had grown and grown, to where we were able to leave the house fairly fast and move into a location. And just being everywhere all the time and running at such a high gear and not paying attention to my health. I just got up one morning. It was actually the Monday after Easter on 2011, and just could not get out of bed. Um, I could not physically get out of bed. Emotionally, I had no desire to. I just, for 2 days, just laid there and slept, wept, could not really describe to my wife or my friends what was wrong with me. So they went and, well, we got blood panels, hormone panels run on me, which is probably a logical next step. And
Sure.
the physician that worked with me said he had only seen numbers that bad in Navy SEALs and in church planters. And
Really?
yep, because of the just the chronic load, the chronic stress, and never letting down, never resting or recovering or allowing your body to recoil from the pressure and the load. My cortisol was really messed up and throwing out of range readings. My testosterone, for a young man, for a 35-year-old, was even worse. My gut was a mess. I was just on fire. There's a lot of red lights all over the dashboard, I guess you could say. And
Yeah.
so that's when I knew I'm either going to have to find another line of work, or I'm going to have to figure out how to do this leadership thing, and not just blow out my tires every few months. I kind of had already, I felt like my youth would have prevented or kept me from that. And then I was competing at a pretty high level. As you said earlier, I compete in triathlon mostly and was doing great in my races. And if you were to have
Mhm.
looked at me, you wouldn't have thought that I was in bad shape. But you can be fit and not healthy. It's easy. You can't really be healthy without being fit, but you can be fit without being healthy, as we learned. And what I look like and what I could do betrayed what was really going on underneath, and that's sometimes actually hurting and contributing to some of the problems I was having underneath the hood. So
So that's really interesting way of putting it. Uh, you can be fit without being healthy. I'm not quite sure I've ever heard anyone put it that way. Maybe you could give a few more examples of what you mean by that.
yeah, it's actually you can't really be fit. Well, let me say it differently. You can be fit and not be healthy. You can't really be healthy and not be fit, which means
Yeah.
it's hard to be healthy without having some modicum of fitness, right? An ability to walk 10,000 steps a day or get up and down the stairs requires some fitness. You're
Mhm.
not ever going to be healthy unless you can do some of those things. But I was able to, and I train with and compete with guys with very low adrenal activity. Their adrenal glands aren't really working. They're stressed out. Their sleep is a mess. They're losing hair. Their gut's a mess. But they can run a 5-minute mile. And so
Yeah.
it is
Huh.
possible to do that, which is why, well, I'll just say that you will find sickness coming to athletes, even pro athletes, whenever they are at their peak or whenever they're trying to peak in their scheduling, right?
Yeah.
You'll find that a
Their
lot of
training
times,
regimen. Yeah.
yep, they're right on the
Cycle.
edge.
Yeah.
Which is why at the Olympics that just happened, they say if you walk through Olympic Village, in any given Olympics, it smells like Bengay and cough drops because there are so many sick athletes. They were trying to just thread the needle of uber fitness, peak performance, and yet inside their body's coming apart. Well, we know that happens in a micro, like at the Olympics, but macro, it does accumulate
Can happen.
chronic
Yeah.
damage to our bodies. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting as well. This it sounds like a very significantly lowered immune response
that's right.
and immune system,
Hmm.
and it sounds like a lot of inflammation as well
Hmm.
occurring, and those two things
Hmm.
will make you sick,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's that's interesting. So, what tell us about kind of what happened coming through the other side of that,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
what were some of the lessons?
Hmm.
I mean, there are probably some clear, obvious lessons that
Hmm.
you're talking about right now, but maybe you could kind of
Hmm.
sum that up for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, different guys burn out for different reasons, and we all have different physiologies and different genetics. It's important to say that. And it's important to remind everyone I am not a doctor. I had no intention of writing a book, even. I just wanted to learn how to lead for the next 30 years and be healthy and not be sick all the time. So I lean back on my old training in school. I lean back on those old professors, which led me to start interviewing people, interviewing neurobiologists, interviewing sleep doctors, reading everything I could get my hands on. I think the bibliography to my book is well over 100 books, just that I had been reading for years.
Mhm.
Again, with no intention of being any voice or conference presence or anything like that. I was just trying to figure it out. Um, and what it led to was a protocol I went through, which was probably a little bit specific to me, that changed my sleep, changed my nutrition. I had to change my fitness regimen as well. And it probably took 2 years, but I was back to optimal health. And it took a while. It took longer than I thought it would, honestly. But
Okay.
some of the fires I was able to put out pretty quick. Some stuck around a little bit longer. And so now when I work with other burned out leaders or pastors, I usually focus on big, what's the biggest raging fires? What can we turn the knob on and get the most effect?
Right.
And because that's what I had to do for my own life. And for me, it was at the time nutrition and sleep And then probably tertiary was the kind of fitness I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to your work in coaching and consulting,
Mm-hmm.
with particularly as it pertains to other pastors in similar situations that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Can you? I mean, we understand you're not a doctor and you're not giving any
Right.
kind of medical advice whatsoever. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
should always consult their own medical professional before making any sorts of
Mm-hmm.
decisions on anything related to your health and your well-being and longevity. However, I'm sure there are people that be very interested. I'm very interested in
Yeah.
understanding, after you came through the other side and you did all of your reading and research and
Mm-hmm.
studying,
Mm-hmm.
kind of what came of that in terms of the protocols and the regimens that you observe now
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, in terms of sleep, in terms of food and nutrition, and in terms of movement and exercise, and what kinds of things have you found to be particularly relevant uh, for us guys here as we get a little bit older into our
Yep.
50s and 60s, and we want to stay going strong, and
Yeah.
we want the next 2 decades and 3 decades of our life to
Mm-hmm.
be, the best yet. And that, I think, in many ways, that starts with having a strong foundation and framework to move forward with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's our health. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you could dig into that a little
Sure.
bit with specifics, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, sure. And significantly, I think it's important to recognize what's changed just in the last few years since I wrote the book with AI and how that has actually walked alongside a lot of protocols to speed up and make accessible things that were previously very expensive and hard to get access to. For instance, probably the first thing would be to get a baseline reading on what's really going on in your body. In the old days, even maybe 6 or 7 years ago, to go get a blood test, let's say you get a dozen tubes of blood pulled and have maybe up to 150 or so biomarkers listed out, that would have required thousands of dollars, a doctor to sit down with you to pour over the data and to help you build a new set of protocols to maybe pull some things back into range. Because remember, we're all different. That was just a
Mhm.
few years ago. Now you can get blood work done for just not much at all. I use Function Health. They don't pay me or anything. I'm not a sponsor of them. But they I think it's 350 or so bucks. I can get up to
Yeah.
200 biomarkers
Just,
twice a
just
year.
a quick note. Just a quick note. I bought my Function Health
Okay,
blood work assessment in I don't know, last September or
yeah,
something like that. So I'm on board with those guys, and it's a
good,
very thorough panel,
yeah,
and it tells you a lot,
yep,
and maybe it tells you some things that you weren't not quite too happy
that's
about,
right.
but a lot of it was just fine. So
Yeah,
sorry to
no,
interrupt.
no,
And
no,
this
no,
is
yeah,
we don't get paid. Maybe we should start
yeah.
advertising
Well,
Function Health. But
they're one of the
I was
big
very
dogs.
happy.
Yeah, they're great. They're one of the big dogs on the block.
Yeah.
Inside Tracker is doing some good work. Aura, Whoop now, they do their own labs. I've been with Whoop for, gosh, since they were a company, honestly. And everyone's starting to do it, and they're all within the same price bandwidth. Maybe some
Mhm.
different bells and whistles, but what it does is it gives you data that's understandable, that now they have their own, proprietary AI built into your own private results to help you build these protocols. Just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was unheard of. No one would have
Yeah.
ever been able to do that. And so that is a great development for leadership health and resiliency. It's just to get a
Yeah.
baseline. I had to get professionals and a team of them and collect and aggregate the data on my own, and they get
Mhm.
professionals to interpret it for me. And kind of gone are those days for the most part. You still need a
Yeah.
doctor to kind of hover over you, which Function provides. But I would say that would be the first, because what it does is it tells you quite a bit about what's already broken and how far out of whack it is. And for me, my adrenal glands just were not working anymore. It was the is I was living a life. that was the equivalency of pulling a fire alarm down in a building and then just holding it in the down position and
Yeah.
living my whole life that way of always fight or flight. It was chronic uh, fatigue from being chronically alert, I guess you could say. And that started to break my body down from the inside out. So I had to pay attention to um, what it looked like to live a life where I was able to, yes, work very hard and exhaust myself even in my work, and at the same time bring recovery protocols and recovery rhythms into my life that I did not previously have, which is something we both understand. I mean, if you were to go to the squat rack today and just wear it out, 5 sets of 15, as much as you could possibly do,
Yeah.
you could go back to the gym tomorrow, but you probably can't go to the squat rack, right? You're probably going to have
Yeah.
to go and do something else, a rowing machine or a swim or something.
Yeah.
What I was effectively doing was going to the squat rack every single day. Uh, what I was learning was I have to build recovery, strategic recovery, into my calendar, so
Hmm.
that it was working hard, resting strategically, working hard, resting strategically. So it wasn't just getting a good baseline; it was learning how to incorporate and recruit rest wisely.
Yeah.
I was also having to learn how to develop a sleep hygiene, where I had previously not had one. And then I had to learn how to look at food quite a bit differently than I had looked at food in the past. Those are the big
Okay.
ones.
Yeah. So can you give just a couple of examples in each of those
Yeah,
categories about things that you've discovered that work well for yourself, and understand that everybody
yeah,
might be a little bit
right, right.
different, and something is going to have a bigger effect for someone than it might for another person. But
Hmm.
as it pertains to sleep, as it pertains to nutrition, as it pertains to any supplements that you
Oh yeah.
found that are beneficial for you to take,
Hmm.
and then a fitness, any kind of fitness routine information you can share with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I'd say when I work with other leaders, the biggest fire we put out is sleep.
Okay.
That's the through line that I find with most high competency leaders. They just don't sleep very well, and there could be a million different reasons for that. But that is the one big fire that we kind of focus on. It's rare to find just a high voltage leader that sleeps great. Um, so a lot of times it's because they don't protect their circadian rhythm. So there's no consistency in their sleep. It's one of the things that Whoop measures, and they award
Yeah.
values to it is, are you going to bed at a good time, waking up at a good time that works for you, and are you doing it all the time? Which means you have to work backwards from the time that you want to fall asleep. And that's not something that we're very good at. But so, for instance, I go to bed probably around 8:30 to 8:40 every night, and I am fast asleep by 9 o'clock, which works. But
Really?
yeah, but I wake up at 4:45, 4:50 every day with no alarm.
Yeah.
That took a lot of years of just repeating the same thing. If I get the same amount of sleep, but I move it back, so let's say I go to bed at
Hmm.
11, but I wake up at 7, it's not the same thing. My body won't respond the same. My recovery ratings
Yeah.
will drop. I won't be able to do or think as clearly as I would have otherwise.
Hmm.
So that's a big one. As you work backwards and protect that one hard stop in your day, what are the things that you're doing, and are those things increasing your
Hmm.
chance for high rest and low latency, or are they decreasing it? So it could be anything from lighting, input through your eyes. It could
Okay.
be what you're eating and drinking. When was your last meal? What kind of food are you taking in? Your supplementation. All of those things start to matter. Even what your bedroom looks like and feels like. What's the temperature of
Hmm.
your bedroom? Is it dark? How dark is it? Do you have a TV in there? All of these things become up for grabs, as you are reassessing what sleep hygiene can look like. So for me, the air temperature had to drop. The TV got
Yeah.
out of the room, and that room is pitch black. We had to drop a chunk of money on blackout blinds, and it was worth every penny.
Yeah.
Um, I, you know, I don't have my eyes on devices late. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that I do. I don't pick up phone calls. In fact, I'm on airplane mode for the last 2 hours of the day, so I'm not riding my
Mhm.
inbox straight into the sleep.
Right.
You just have to do so. It's going to be different for different people, but you have to start thinking strategically about something that when we were in our 20s, we just collapse on the futon and pass out, and
Yeah.
we'd wake up and probably gain 2 pounds of muscle, right? Just because we were young and
Yeah.
you could get away with that stuff. But when
Yeah.
you're 50 years old, I turned 50. I turned 50 yesterday, the big 50. And
Happy
hey,
birthday,
thanks,
my
thank
friend.
you. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm in the crew now. But I have to think through, if I drink this glass of water right now, is that wise? I didn't have to think about that
Yeah.
when I was 20. So
Yeah.
so I think it's just realizing that there is a sleep hygiene. It must be protected. When it comes to I would say fitness. Fitness is going to look a lot like maybe your work and rest rhythms on your calendar. You've got to have recovery and you have to protect it. One of
Mhm.
the things I was doing that was inflaming my burnout basically was just constantly working out with no recovery. Just always going
Okay.
to the wire, always trying to max out, run the fastest, even though science clearly tells us that's really ridiculous and not wise. Just not really thinking through how to phase good, thoughtful recovery into my workouts. And so I was always injured, always sick, and just trying to train through it. Um,
Okay.
for me, also, I had to come off of the longer races. I stopped doing races over 5 hours, and
Okay.
started doing races that were a little bit shorter, to protect my health a little bit more. I think if I was to do another full Ironman, which would be a race over 5 hours, I'd have to be much more careful than I had been in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, so training had to change. I would say, with the food is the trickiest, right? Nutrition's a moving target in pop culture, and what was our darling
Yeah.
yesterday is our enemy tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I have, but one of the things I did was to bring myself back to any semblance of health. I went on what might be more of a cleanse than a diet. I started
Okay.
removing anything that was inflammatory, even if I wasn't allergic
Okay.
to it. And I'm not really allergic to very much, but I got rid of just anything that could inflame. Uh, and I got rid of sugars. I got rid of alcohol. I got rid of coffee. It was a miserable 3 months of just,
Oh boy.
yeah, we're talking about chicken and broccoli and just a reduced, like not even all the vegetables. I couldn't even eat all the vegetables, just some vegetables, some meats, no
Yeah.
processed food, nothing fun or tasty for a while, and
Yeah.
just had to
Yeah.
reset everything. Because previously, if I could reach it, I can eat it because I burned,
Yeah.
5,000, 6,000 calories that day. So I felt entitled
Yeah.
to do whatever I wanted. But yeah, it's that was a very hard knob to adjust, but it did pay off in dividends. And then slowly I was able to add some food back in thoughtfully while paying attention to how I would react to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and the closest thing I have now is not anything novel or innovative. It's just it's not ketogenic, but it is a lower carb nutritional
Yeah.
scheme. I'll have a drink occasionally. I have coffee before 9 a.m. So I have some berms and some fences on what I do eat and don't eat,
Yeah.
but it's not
Sure.
indiscriminate like it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. And that makes sense. And I think in my experience has been, and I think you and I talked a little bit when we first spoke a couple of weeks ago, that I had a medical wake up call myself, and this was almost 4 years ago at this point. it just required some very significant changes. And I think the major thing that I've come to learn is that eliminating sugar and processed foods, staying away from the center aisles of the grocery store,
That's
and
right.
keeping to meat and vegetable and fruit, staying away from the high glycemic starchy stuff and bread and potatoes and that kind of thing.
Yep.
And believe me, I'm the biggest fan of French fries on the face of the
Yeah.
earth, and it's not fun, but
Yep.
I'll go and go when I'm out to eat, and you want fries with that, and it's like, no, I'll take the side salad,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so it's not anything overwhelming, and it's not anything so absolute from my experience that anybody couldn't make some simple changes and eliminate the process stuff in particular. And and not to get political or anything, but as a quick note, I will say that both my wife and I are very gratified with the renewed interest that government agencies are taking in kind of redefining what's good for
Yeah.
us and what
Sure.
isn't, and kind of turning a corner in terms of what is recommended
Yep.
officially by the government in terms of what's healthy, and trying to reduce the amount of processed stuff, or at least making people aware of the level of processing that is in a something typical that you might consume, a bag of Doritos or whatever it happens to be. There, a lot of people will just eat without even thinking about it, just because they always
That's
have,
right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, one last topic on this, and then I want to go back to your church planting and before the 2011 episode. Any supplements that you take that seem to work for
Oh
you?
yeah. Oh yeah. So when I work with other leaders and we take a look at their medicine cabinet to find out what they're doing, I usually I submit to them what I did with myself, and I found a very, very good multivitamin to build that foundation and basement of all supplementation. You can actually get a lot done with a good multivitamin. Sounds basic. There are some good ones out there. The best ones are going to be a little bit more expensive. I personally use Thorns, Thorne. They have a multivitamin elite, and the reason I use their multivitamin is because the AM dose has a different blend than the PM dose, and that actually is meant to reinforce your circadian rhythm instead of fight against it. There are some
Okay.
nutrients you could take right before bed that might make it a little bit harder for you to kind of iron
Yeah.
in that. They actually make one for men over 50 as well. So they've tweaked that multivitamin to be more specific to the aging chassis of a guy. They're a good, clean lab and a good, clean place to get your vitamins. I think that's who works with all of our Olympic teams. I think that's they're officially they use Thorn officially. So beyond that,
And you probably started receiving marketing from them yesterday for the over 50
no,
supplement, I would
I
imagine.
didn't, but I
No,
knew about it.
they're,
I thought about jumping the gun and just starting to take it anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Seems like they know everything about us,
right.
the marketers,
Yeah,
and
yeah, no.
why I mentioned.
I think probably the best second move is if you've got sleep issues, I would find some cocktails. They call them cocktails, just some different ways of arranging supplements. I'm using one right now that's been helpful for me, where I take GABA, magnesium L-threonate, are the two that I use predominantly for sleep. Magnesium glycinate as well. We're all deficient in
Mm-hmm.
magnesium. I think there's several different kinds. Uh, some some are meant better for sleep, or they help with our sleep a little bit better. So if you've got sleep issues, focus on just building up your supplementation to help you with that first, and then after that, I think it probably depends on your blood markers. Where one guy
Yeah.
has lipid issues and he's taking CoQ10, another guy might not. doesn't need to waste his money on CoQ10. He he
Yeah.
might have adrenal fatigue and needs to start taking maybe ashwagandha a little bit more than the first guy. So, but I
Yeah.
would say you could you could you could go broke basically buying supplements.
Yes.
So one of the things that you can do, because what we do is
Yeah.
we usually Frankenstein our supplement protocol, but we just keep adding things. And before you know it, you have a pill carrier that's got 13 pills in the morning and 13 pills in the evening. So what you can do is you can actually take pictures of all of your supplements and just load it into any AI engine, really. ChatGPT does a fine job of this, and just say, find the
Yeah.
redundancy. And if I had to kill two of
Yeah.
these, which two will affect me the least by losing, and let it drive that
Yeah.
down to something that's more affordable. But that's how I would start. Multivitamin first, 100%.
That's a great idea. A great use of AI. And I hadn't thought about that, but that's a great idea. And I also in the function health
Yep,
sort of labs that you get
yep,
back and the report that goes along
yep.
with it in terms of what it all means and so
They do it.
forth. As I remember, I haven't looked
Hmm.
at it in a couple of months, but as I remember, it had some supplementation um,
Yep.
suggestions in there as
Hmm.
well. Just to kind of help if you were deficient or there are some issues in one place or another.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
the function health thing is really quite
Hmm.
good. Um, can we go back to, you talked about a little bit about the entrepreneurial nature of planting a church and starting different ministries. I think they were youth ministries or
College, yeah,
college
college
ministries,
campus.
campus
Hmm.
campus
Hmm.
ministries. Okay, and kind of what led up to. So, can you just describe a typical day? Because I'm curious about this and really fascinated by it because it's a it's a calling.
Hmm.
It's a job description and a
Yes.
job
Yes.
title that is I don't think is very well known what it involves.
Hmm.
Can you kind of describe a typical
Oh.
day and what you did in that
Hmm.
day in order to that came to a head really in you getting sick
Yeah.
really and
Yeah. That uh, there is no such thing as an average day. I will say that in the 1950s, the 1940s, a pastor, a local pastor, would need to be really good at bedside manner, hospital visits, preparing sermons, potentially a Wednesday night meeting. Um, and that there's not a lot more. There's not a lot more. But Peter Drucker, the old management expert, um,
uh-huh
he would say that the top four hardest jobs in the world are President of the United States, number one, university presidents, number two, hospital presidents, number three, and local pastors, number four. And the reason he put pastors as the fourth is because we have to be experts in over 3 dozen fields. So gone are the days of me needing to be excellent at the bedside of a
yeah
cancer patient, which I still have to be good at. I also need to know search engine optimization out of nowhere. I have to know how lighting works if I'm talking with a congregation through COVID on a camera. I have to know how to
yeah
lead staff. So organizational leadership starts to kind of move up as a high value skill set. You need to know
hmm
marketing like crazy. You have to know marketing. How are people even going to know that you exist if you don't know how to do
yeah
that? You've got to be good at um, finances. There's a million things that you have to be good at. Where back in the 40s and the 50s, it was not like that so much. And so for
yeah
some people, um, they are like myself, wound to be great at all of it, and
hmm
just be to know all about everything and to be excellent at everything. So an average day could look like a wedding in the morning and a funeral at night, and doing a very good job of both. And it could also look like building a creative sermon, uh, even though you're exhausted, and then maybe getting 6 emails and 2 text messages. And it's so one of the things that has burned pastors out in the past is a very high up and down nature of the job. So it's a very violent job. There's great things about
Yeah.
weddings. There's horrible things like funerals, and you might experience both of
Yeah.
those before lunch. And that can be really hard if you're not resting to parse it out, to emotionally move through it, to think it through, to lament it at sometimes, and
Hmm.
then to move forward. And so pastors will get burned out a lot of times because it feels lonely, they feel ill equipped, and it's very high stakes and it's never ending. You'll get calls at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
On your day off. And so I would say
Yeah.
that is one of the reasons that I struggled so much was I just was unable, honestly, uh, to be okay with things falling apart. I was not
Yeah.
okay with things being average. I was not okay with things not getting done. I needed everything done. I needed it done well, and I needed it done today. And it was probably in my mind too important or high value to hand off to somebody else. And those are key ingredients to any leader who's going to burn out. Burnout's waiting for that
Yeah.
guy 10 out of 10 times. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So that's, I mean, that's a really unique and I had not thought about the, kind of the toughest jobs in the world. And I think I mentioned to you that, my dad was a pastor growing up, and I remember some of this, but this was in the late '60s and '70s and into the early '80s as I was coming up and coming of age, and it was just a little bit different, and we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have really the marketing aspect of it, and it was like you said, the pastor in the 1950s was a basic kind of skill set that that person had to bring to the table, and it was usually quite sufficient. If they had the heart for it and they had the calling for it, that was usually quite sufficient. So really interesting. So what I'd like to do uh, now, Luke, is if we could talk about your book. And I know that you'd mentioned that you had done extensive research and had an extensive bibliography that you used to put this together. Um, Tell us a little bit about the themes in that book, and then I want to get into your work with um, mostly pastors, I
yeah.
understand, and mostly church plant pastors, that type of thing, and then we can wrap up if that's
Sure.
okay with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. The book is like any book, the why, the what, and the how. Every good book has those three components. Again, I didn't even want to write it. The guy who wrote the foreword, Elliot Grudem, and
Mhm.
our mutual friend John Fouché with People Launching are the ones that encouraged me to compile it. Most of it came from conference sessions that were specific to one category, and then over time they just became chapters. So the why do we burn out, is the major, maybe the first two or three chapters. The what of what is burnout, what is actually happening, because it's kind of a mystical word, right? In the book I liken it
Yeah.
to shin splints. Runners will always say, "I have a shin splint," but that's some mysterious thing. We just point to our leg and say it hurts. They don't really know what it is, why they got it,
Yeah.
or how to get rid of it.
Could mean different things to
Yeah. So
different people.
what
Yeah.
is burnout? Because now it's just a very commonly used term, right? And a lot kind of hides underneath it, and we misapply burnout to a lot of things that aren't really burnout. And then the what is, how does one walk out of it? And for the what, it starts with um, the gospel reorienting our life to see that we are finite and God is infinite. And anytime we try to reach for the infinite, we're going to find exhaustion. It's us trying to
Uh-huh.
exceed how we were created. And so, what truth does the gospel have for us that frees us from the need to be omniscient, omnipresent, all competent? What is that gospel truth? So I spend a couple chapters on that, because You can apply all of the functional nutrition, functional health, and sleep hygiene you want, but if you lose that perspective and awareness of who God is and who you are, you're just going to keep finding burnout in different ways. But then I wanted to give leaders, Christian leaders and pastors, some hard, tangible applications that they can use. So calendar management is in there. That's something that I commonly feel to be broken with leaders that burn out. They just don't know how to work and how to build rest inside of a work day, a work week, a quarter, a year, a sabbatical, how to
Mhm.
scale it. We don't scale rest very well. We look at the
Mhm.
Sabbath day as a key piece of that. We do look at fitness. We do look at nutrition. We do look at sleep. These are some of the things. Now, anytime you write a book like this, it's frozen in time. If I was to write it today, I'd probably add a few more
Yeah.
chapters, supplementation being one of them.
When was it published?
2016, it was published through
Okay.
Lucid Publishing. Yeah. And
Okay.
I knew at the time I was mentioning technology and things that you could do. I knew when I wrote it, this is going to be outdated so fast, but what else can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's fascinating. What uh, Tell me a little bit about what you see in generalities, what you see in the people that you work with, that you counsel, that you consult with, that you coach, and then maybe just what you've observed um, in men as they get older, perhaps, and start to experience what you define as burnout. Because anecdotally, personally, I hear a lot of stories, a lot of guys turning turning 55, turning 58, turning 61, might be in the workplace still. They're in a position that they're just not quite sure that this is exactly what they're supposed to be doing for the next 10 years, or to close out their professional career, or maybe it's in a business situation, the business that they're running. They're just maybe they're disillusioned, disaffected, overwhelmed, um, uh, or burnt out, or maybe they're just uncertain and unsure.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about maybe what you have experienced in your
Yeah.
work with the different folks.
It's not going to be too different than what you specialize in, and because they run adjacent on adjacent rails. Men that fail to recognize that they need to pivot from more of an intelligence that is kind of calcified, but something that they, or maybe fluid is probably the better word for it, that fluid intelligence that they were so used to operating on,
Mhm.
being able to maybe switch from that to more of a crystallized intelligence that capitalizes on all of that, but kind of pulls it all together.
Yeah,
When men don't do that, what
yeah,
do? They burn out, and they start trying to keep up with the old version of themselves, and they've solidly,
yeah. That's a
they're
great way of
missing a
putting it.
step. They've
Yeah,
missed a step. It's all just a lack of awareness, right? That lack of a pivot from
yeah.
fluid to crystallized intelligence is just a lack of self-awareness, and probably an unwillingness to let go of some things. I would say the same thing is true in our physical frame, how we carry ourselves. I You could not have convinced me I was not my 35-year-old self yesterday on my birthday. Because in my head I am,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah,
perspective has really come alongside to help me say, "Oh no, you're not. Your numbers are diving. Your
yeah,
testosterone is diving. You can't do box jumps like you used to. You can't some of the and so I've had to also let go of some things and kind
yeah.
of step into that awareness and really do a better job with my later years. I would say when I work with older leaders, it's not different than what you do when you work with older leaders. It's just a lack of self-awareness, helping them see
Mhm.
that, whether it is through a hormone profile or through data that they could pull off of a wearable, helping them see that,
Mhm.
in their diet and their sleep, is helpful for them, but they still have to embrace the fact that I can't do what I used to do, and that's not bad. I could probably actually do
Yeah.
better than I used to do if I just prepare differently. I mean, by far my fastest times are now. I'm still competing faster. I'm actually getting more work
Uh-huh.
done than I used to, and the work is more quality than it used to be. But I've had to slow
Yeah.
down in order to get faster, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know that what is true for leaders when they fail to pivot and how they look at their intelligence, fluid to crystallize, it's going to
Hmm.
be the same thing with how we handle our not our intelligence but our body. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's probably how I'd answer that. But most of the people I work with, however, the bell curve are going to be in their late 30s all the way up to their early 50s. That's going to make the majority. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Sure. Sure. Well, God willing, 50, 55, 60,
yeah.
65, it's
That's
coming
right.
for all of us. And yes, definitely something to be embraced. It's one of the themes, like you and I talked about earlier on. It's one of the themes of really what we're trying to bring awareness to, is, we're not all washed up and it's not all downhill from here. And yeah, you might not be able to operate at the same level you did when you're 35 as you do now when you're 61, but you can operate differently and bring a heck of a lot of value
Yeah.
to the table, by really understanding your crystallized intelligence and what your decades of wisdom and experience, have taught you and what you bring to the table, with that regard. So what I'd like to do, Luke, is, um, I have two questions
Hmm.
that I like to ask every guest, to wrap
Sure.
things up. And thank you again. You've been a
Yeah.
fabulous guest. Appreciate you and appreciate your straightforward,
Yeah.
candor
My
with us
pleasure.
and so forth. But, um, if you had to, just stepping back and thinking, if you had to distill
Hmm.
everything that you've learned over
Hmm.
the years, all the crossroads, all of the reinventions, all of the hard won clarity,
Hmm.
into three core lessons for those men out there, for those of us that are trying to build durable,
Hmm.
meaningful lives, what would those three things be?
Such a good question. Uh, you know, we did this exercise as a church staff the other day where I had everyone find a picture of themselves 20 years ago. And they did. It
Yeah.
helps to see it with your own eyes because then you just all of a sudden remember what you used to think back then. Uh, and so I looked at myself back then and I had a head full of hair and had a bigger, thicker neck and was a different young man. I was
Yeah.
30 years old. And I just knew what
Yeah.
that guy thought, and I knew how he operated. I think if I was to fire up the flux capacitor and go back and talk to him, I would tell him to slow down. I would tell him to slow down. Uh, you'll get better quality stuff done over a longer amount of time, and that always wins over speed right now. So slow down. I think I would tell him just to enjoy what God was doing around him, which would have helped me interpret the losses uh, and the things that were slowing me down, not to be negatives, but things that were actually positive.
Mhm.
Um, as I say this stuff out loud, it's probably what 70-year-old Luke would come and tell me right now. Isn't that funny how we would probably tell ourselves the
Yeah.
same thing that we would tell our younger version of ourselves? These are still things that I have to work
Yeah.
through. The third one, that's where it gets hard. I'm not 100% sure what I would say, except for maybe that it's okay. It's okay to age. Um, it's okay
Yeah.
to maybe lose a step in some areas because I also realize I'm gaining a step in some other key areas. We make jokes all the time, and it's proverbial. It's in the Bible. You know how valuable a crown of gray head is really in a room. You always want that guy
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think I really believed it. I do now. I don't know that I would go back in
Yeah.
time. I don't know that I covet younger versions of me at the cost of the wisdom that God has
Mm.
given me now for some things. I enjoy the
Yeah.
wisdom I have now better than I enjoyed the youth of what I had then. So
That's
yeah,
that's deep.
yeah. So
That's
just
good.
it's
That's
okay. It's
awesome.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. If I have to get up and go to the bathroom every night now, where I didn't used to have to do that. It's okay. The aging process, this sack of skin that falls apart over time. I mean, for the Christian, this is as bad as it gets. It's only going to get better for us in
Yeah.
many ways. And for me to really believe that,
Yeah.
that would have been something that I would have probably reminded my younger version of myself back then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good, and it's interesting. It ties into something, an exercise that I think back to, and I've been going over for the past 6 months or so. Is so I'm in my early 60s, and we lost my father when he was 84, and it wasn't unexpected. Let's put it that way. And but my dad was about 30 or 31 years older than when I was born. So I go back and I think about the journey that my dad made as a father and as a husband, and shepherding this family through all of the different things that we did growing up, and the moves that we made, and the different decisions that he made, and so forth. And I find myself going back to certain points in time when he was a crossroads. He made a decision, or did something, or said something, or whatever it might happen to be. And I find, at the time, of course, when you're younger, you're like, Dad,
Yeah.
what are you doing? What are you doing? And you go back now and you put yourself, what was my dad doing when he was 61? And okay, this is what he was doing, and this is what he was thinking. And it just go back and put my feet in his shoes, and really trying to get inside of his mindset. And it brings a lot of uh, a lot of fondness and grace into the situation as I go back and I remember and I think about what my dad was actually going through, and that he was a human being. He was a man. Yes, he happened to be a minister, but he was a man with all of the challenges and failures and successes and temptations and downfalls and flaws that we all have. So I just it's a valuable. I think it's so. If I had to introduce one of my things that I would tell another guy my age that is going through and trying to think through what happens next and what are the lessons that I've learned. That's an exercise that I have undertaken lately, and it's been very beneficial. And
Yeah.
he was a good man, and he tried
Yeah.
his best, uh, and I'm grateful for him.
That's great.
So,
That's good.
with
Yeah.
that said,
Yeah.
Luke
Yeah.
Thomas,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Yeah.
so much for being here and spending this time with us. I think we're pretty much up
Yeah.
against the hour
Hmm.
or so, and uh, anything else that you want to promote or plug, or any awareness out there for the millions of downloads that this podcast will
Sure.
garner?
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
faith that there will be millions of
Yeah,
ears on
sure,
this.
sure. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is if anyone's in need of coaching and or consulting on this, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or physical, people launching is who I work with. I work with our mutual friend John Fouché in that. I'm one of his
Yep.
coaches, but he has a few, and they're all incredibly good. And he himself is a bit of a wizard at helping people navigate these big pivots and milestones in their life and kind of seeing what next looks like. That's what he's nationally known for, anyway. And
Yeah.
so, if anyone is wanting to learn more, that's probably where I would send them. Yeah. People launch, yes.
Peoplelaunching.com, right? peoplelaunching.com. So go ahead and pay John and the team a visit, and they'll be happy to get you set up or connected with the right resources to help you navigate through whatever it is
Yes.
you're navigating through. And I'll say in closing that John Fouché and the staff over there, he actually lives right down the road from me here. I don't know, probably 6 or 8 miles away. John Fouché is the main reason why we're sitting here today doing this podcast and this program. So very solid, grounded coach and individual human being, and I enjoy working with him.
Too.
Immensely.
He's my coach. So I do too. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep. So with all that said, thank you again, Luke Thomas, and we'll certainly be in touch, and I look forward to following your story, and best of luck with the church out there in Tennessee, and God bless you. Take care.
Thank you very
so
much. I appreciate it.